we look at Saul of Tarsus. And you are wondering, what was about this man, Saul of Tarsus? This was somebody persecuting the church. Indeed, there were many Christians, standing Christians. We've read about the deacons. Stephen had been killed. We've read about Philip, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, and the proselyte, Nicholas. They were there. Why didn't God choose any one of them? We know of Peter, James, John, all those people. Why were they not the ones chosen for this special assignment that God was now choosing Saul? They were standing Christians, praying, fasting, people who put their lives on the line, persecuted. Why Saul? What a privilege. And Saul understood it. He understood this privilege that he had. In Galatians chapter 1, he writes from verse 13. He says, "For you have heard of my former conduct in Judaism, how I persecuted the church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it. And I advanced in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries in my own nation, being more exceedingly zealous for the traditions of my fathers. But when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me through his grace to reveal his son in me, that I might preach him among the Gentiles, I did not immediately confer with flesh and blood, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me, but I went to Arabia and returned again to Damascus." Saul was saying here that, look, I do not know what it is that God saw in me. All I know is that I was one of those persecuting the church of God. But when it pleased God, and we don't know what it was that he saw, but it pleased him, the God who separated me from my mother's womb, to separate me unto a particular work. And he separated me and put Christ in me, put the knowledge of Christ in me, and began to use me. Paul understood why God had called him. Paul understood the great privilege he had to be chosen. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 3 to 11, again, he writes here, he says, "For I delivered to you, first of all, that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins, according to the scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day, according to the scriptures, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by the 12. After that, he was seen by over 500 brethren at once, of whom the greater part remain to the present, but some have fallen asleep. After that, he was seen by James, then by all the apostles. Then, in verse 8, it says, then last of all, he was seen by me also, as by one born out of due time. For I am the least of the apostles, who am not worthy to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain. But I labored more abundantly than they all, yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. Therefore, whether it was I or they, so we preach, and so you believed. What is Paul telling us here? He's saying that I was chosen by God, not because I had anything that was of worth to God. That indeed I was one persecuting the church. I was not worthy. And this is the thing about the divine appointment. It is not based on your worth. I've heard pastors talk about, we are fasting, we are praying, that's why God is doing these things in your midst. No, sir. No. We are strategizing, we are planning, that is why the church is growing. No, sir. Paul wrote in this same 1 Corinthians, I think in chapter 3, he says, one man plants another waters. It is God that gives the increase. We need to correct our mindset. We need to correct our thinking and stop believing that it is what we are doing that is making what is happening in our churches to happen. No, it is God. Not of him that runs, nor of him that wills, but of God that shows mercy. There are people who have labored for years and nothing has happened to their church. They are just there. Maximum it has grown to 20, 30. Teaching them dutifully, diligently, just doing that. Some of them die just teaching that number. Some others, after going through that for like 30, 35 years, one day, they'll just, boom, the place just explodes. And then people go and ask them, how did you do it? If they are wise, they will tell them, I don't know. It's God that did it. But because we are used to, we are given to boasting, many of us are trying to ascribe things. That is why you now have people writing books on how to grow a church. Who can grow a church but God? The reason why we are having the kind of churches we are having today, which are man-made, is because God's hand has been removed. And men want to do things that they can boast about and say, we did this thing. But Paul, recognizing this, said, by the grace of God, I am what I am. It was his grace towards me that helped me. I labored, yes, but it is God is the one that supplied me with the strength to even labor. What is it that you have that was not first given to you by God? It is time that we stop all these boastings and understand the kind of privilege that we have in God and of God to be appointed, to be chosen to do a special work.